I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen felon criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
How many of our ICE agents have been doxxed?
Listen, it's over. Anytime Senator Alex Padilla, who represents the state that Kristi Noem and the Trump administration have illegally occupied for the past week, gets manhandled and tackled outside of her press conference, it's clear that they think their authoritarian state is in place. So here's the senator talking about what happened.
I'm here in Los Angeles today, and I was here in the federal building, in the conference room, awaiting a scheduled briefing from federal officials. I learned that Secretary Noem was having a press conference a couple of doors down the hall. Since the beginning of the year, but especially over the course of recent weeks, several of my colleagues, have been asking the Department of Homeland Security for more information and more answers on their increasingly extreme immigration enforcement actions. And we've gotten little to no information in response to our inquiries. And so I came to the press conference to hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. At one point, I had a question, and so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. I was not arrested. I was not detained.
There were some stops and pauses in his account to let people know that he went there peacefully and all that stuff. But it's tiring that an entire MAGA party, having absolutely no concerns about being hostile, bloodthirsty, or uncivilized, expecting anyone challenging them to prove that they're not violent. There's expectations of caution and meekness for Democrats, while MAGA takes on the form of their leader by promoting and celebrating their aggression.
If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country. We will hold this administration accountable.
Now, I see Senator Padilla's point, but MAGA doesn't see the humanity and worth in day laborers or folks that work in those fields. So his concern about their standard of violence is actually their objective. There are thoughts that as long as we try to appeal to the souls of the people that are carrying out inhumane deportations by showing the heartbreaking scenes of mothers being ripped away from their children, which we are, or American citizens being slammed on the ground by unidentified men, that this will all somehow tug at their heartstrings. No, their goal is violence and cruelty, and it's all that they understand. So here's Kristi Noem robotically reciting the propaganda about the situation that everyone saw go down.
You know, what I would say is we were conducting a press conference to update everyone on the enforcement actions that are ongoing to bring peace to the city of Los Angeles. And this man burst into the room, started lunging towards the podium, interrupting me and elevating his voice, and was stopped, did not identify himself, and was removed from the room. So as soon as he identified himself, appropriate actions were taken.
Okay, pause for a second, because this is just the beginning of the list of lies that she tossed out on Fox News. She said he didn't identify himself.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary. I'm Senator Alex Padilla.
She either doesn't know that everyone could hear him identify himself, or she doesn't care that everyone could hear him identify himself.
But I would say that, I had a conversation with the senator after this. We sat down for 10 to 15 minutes and talked about the fact that nobody knew who he was. He didn't say who he was, that until he was already had been lunging forward and people were trying to detain him for quite a period of time. Nobody knew who he was when he came into the room creating a scene. He was removed from the room, and yes, they started to put handcuffs on him when he finally identified himself, and then that was stopped.
In order to advance the alternate reality that spits in the face of what actually happened, Kristi Noem knows that she has to just keep repeating the propaganda. But when it's confronted with actually thinking about how access to a federal building works, these blatant lies start to crumble.
Secretary Noem said that you, quote, lunged towards her at this press conference. The Department of Homeland Security said the Secret Service believed that you were an attacker. And the Department of Homeland Security called this political theater.
Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. It's a lie, but par for the course for this administration.
So let me make sure I understand that. Go ahead.
So the whole time, right? We're the whole time being escorted in this federal building by somebody from the National Guard, somebody from the FBI. I've gone through a screening. This is a federal building. And so tell them, let's go listen to the press conference. They escort me over to that room. The folks that were escorting me in the building walked me over. I didn't even open the door. The door was open for me. And I spent a few minutes in the back of the room just listening in until the rhetoric, the political rhetoric, got to be too much to take. So I spoke up.
So is anyone from DHS disputing the fact that Senator Padilla had to get access to this federal building? That he was escorted to the room that they shoved him out of by an official from the National Guard and the FBI? That he didn't go through a screening process just to be in that building? If they deny all that, they have to then answer questions about why they allow such unsecured protocol in a city that they keep claiming is rioting and under attack by these criminal alien gangs. They just don't care about facts, or even if they sound like facts. It's about propping up the dictator through projection.
This man burst into a room, started advancing towards the podium, interrupting an opening statement, elevating his voice, shouting questions. People tried to stop him from interrupting the press conference. He refused and continued to lunge towards the podium, and that is when he was removed from the room. So the way that he acted was completely inappropriate. It wasn't becoming a U.S. senator or a public official, and perhaps he wanted the scene, and that's what he wanted. But I think the American people are sick of this kind of action. I think the American people are tired of this. They just want the truth, and they just want to know what's happening, and that's what we were trying to provide. I just, I'm so sick of the politics, Martha. This is literally people's lives. We have criminal gangs and terrorists out on our streets that we're trying to remove from Los Angeles. I mean, people just need to get over themselves and have the backs of law enforcement and this president who just want to clean up America and make it safe again. We're leaders. We're public servants. And if he had requested a meeting, I would have loved to have sat down and had a conversation with him. That coming into a press conference like this is political theater. It's wrong, and it does a disservice to this country and the people who live here.
So according to them, what Senator Padilla did, where he went to a press conference and represented his constituents and stood up for their rights, was political theater. But what Kristi Noem keeps doing when she cosplays as an ICE agent for tough guy PR purposes isn't.
Here we are with Marco and Brian today. They're letting me roll with them. We're going to go out and pick up somebody who I think is got charges of human trafficking. We earlier had an op that swept up somebody who was wanted for murder. So appreciate the good work that they do every day, and we appreciate them working to make America safe.
These guys live and thrive in the badly produced reality TV scenes that get cooked up by the guy that used to host The Apprentice. They carry out wildly illegal and violent raids on the citizens of the country, then put their hands up and wonder why everyone's so upset about it.
And I'm sitting in the back of the room behind the cameras, behind the reporters, listening. And at one point, it was just too much to take. Not the first, but the second attack on the political leadership of California, and this notion that Donald Trump and Kristi Noem have to come in and rescue the people of Los Angeles from Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. It was too much.
Only going to continue and be increased until we have peace on the streets of Los Angeles. The president has told me, Kristi, use everything that we have to make sure that the citizens of Los Angeles know that we care about them, that they have lived with crime for far too long, and that we want them to be able to walk their children to school in the morning and feel safe. We want them to, small businesses downtown, to not have to worry about getting burned to the ground because some organized crime nonprofit funder is deciding that now is the time to send a political message or an agenda. So we're going to stay here and build our operations until we make sure that we liberate the city of Los Angeles. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country, and what they have tried to insert into the city. So I want to say thank you to every single person.
She literally threatened multiple times to rid the city of its elected leadership and replace them with who exactly? That was the point where Padilla interrupted to defend the city from this occupying force. Stepping in to correct the record was actually what caused those officials who escorted him into the room again to shove and tackle him for doing. Speaking up, the truth is what this biggest offense is to this fascist MAGA government, from the administration all the way down to the president's slimy enablers in Congress.
I think the senator's actions, my view is it was wildly inappropriate. You don't charge a sitting cabinet secretary, and everybody can draw their own conclusions. You can see it's a heated debate here. I'm not going to respond to that. Look, let me just, hold on, wait just a second. I think the American people can draw their own conclusions. They saw a senator acting like wildly inappropriate. I'll leave it at that. So.
But what about the way he was treated by the
What I saw,